Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special bonus episode of the Cinematic Schematic, the official podcast of the Cinematropolis.com. I'm your host, Caleb Masters, and what would warrant a bonus episode more than a story diving into a ragtag band of misfits who fall into an uneasy allyship that becomes something oh so much more? No, this is not a retrospective review of Guardians of the Galaxy 3. This is Eli Roth's Borderlands, the movie we know that the masses have been thirsting for, hungering for. We have to give it our impression. It warranted a full bonus episode. So we're actually going to kick things off with a quick icebreaker question. What is our experience with the Borderlands video game franchise? And from there, we'll jump into a full-blown spoiler review of the film where we're going to render a verdict. So there will be no spoiler-free version. We're just going to jump into the review. Spoilers ahoy. If you don't want to be spoiled on the movie at all, go ahead and tune out now and come back after you've seen the movie if you decide to see it. Who could I ask to join this very daunting task of reviewing Eli Roth's Borderlands, now playing in a theater near you, other than Chad Parizman, podcast host, producer, principal, and founder at Ader Communications. Chad, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Caleb. Excited to be here. I'm always here for the big, bombastic, explosion, glittery movies. We talked Kong Godzilla last time.
Fun
We've
time.
talked Thor. I think this probably had fallen off your radar until I was like, hey, I love Borderlands. Are we talking Borderlands? And you were like, I guess.
That's pretty much how it went. Okay. I gotta, not to overplay my hand here, but when the first trailer came out, my expectations dropped pretty dramatically. And I think we had talked about doing this I think it was before the trailer came out or about the time the trailer came out. And I was like, yeah, I'm sure we'll work that into the schedule. And then of course, you start making the schedule, you look at it and you're like, man, there's all these other movies that are probably going to be a little better that have come out. And then you chimed in and he's like, are we going to talk about it? And it's like, you know what? I am in fact a huge Borderlands fan. I don't get to talk with a lot of other Borderlands fans about the game series or their feelings on the movie. I haven't talked to any of the Borderlands fans yet about this movie. So yes, Chad, that is exactly what happened. I'm still thrilled.
And I think we talked at the beginning of the year where you were like, hey, what films are on your radar? Mm-hmm. And I went through the list and I was like, all right, Kong Godzilla definitely. But I was like, do you ever play Borderlands? You're like, yep. Cause we've talked some gaming stuff before. So it's been on my radar, but I feel you, man. It's the same thing. A friend of mine who we used to play Borderlands 2 together, in co-op mode and stuff. He's who I actually saw this film with as well. Oh, nice. We went on a Friday afternoon at noon. It was us and 5 other people in the movie theater.
On opening day. Yikes.
On opening day. No, it was noon, so not everyone in the summer, here in Jersey, the weather just broke. It stopped raining. The sun came out. So, I was a little bit hopeful that maybe, this was just a fluke. I know we're going to get into it. But it was not. I expect there were many other theaters that looked like that throughout the weekend.
There was a surprising, I think maybe 10 people in my theater. I was pleasantly surprised. It was a Saturday. Now it was a Saturday matinee. I was actually sitting next to a family that looked like they made it a family affair. That one in particular was the most surprising because I was like a whole family, like the mom, daughters, son. I was like, all right, here we are. Well, Chad, you've played some Borderlands in the past. Maybe tell me a little bit more about your experience with the franchise. Definitely Borderlands 2, I just heard. How far back does your relationship with the series go?
I mean, back to the beginning. I've probably played, I would say the only franchise in total that I've played more than Borderlands would probably be every Zelda. And that's just because there's been so many Zelda games. Yeah. But I would say over the last decade, the game series that I've played the most has been Borderlands. I've played all of the main storylines. I've played the pre-sequel. I love the Tiny Tina DLC.
Yes.
I like the Tiny Tina expansion game, that they did to kind of hold us over until Borderlands 4. I played the first Tales of the Borderlands game from who was the company that went under and then has been making a comeback.
I mean, all the Walking Dead, the Game of Thrones, Telltale Games, yeah.
Telltale Games, yeah. And I love those, the choose your own adventure types of things. So I have spent a lot of time with these characters. I am invested in the lore, in the loot, in the merch, and yeah, I had high hopes that this would at least be a fun movie with a ton of Easter eggs for those of us who have spent a lot of time. How about yourself? How much have you played the games?
So I started with Borderlands 2 on the PS3, I think PS3 or PS4, somewhere in there. I think maybe it was the 4, but I played it with friends from college. It was one of those. It was a big online experience. It's like, hey, this is a great way for us to stay in touch. You can play this game together. Love the looter shooter. It was the first time It's funny because looter shooter, which is essentially like games where you go and the whole mission is to go in, kill a bunch of enemies, gun them down, and then you unlock new weapons inside. It's sort of like the gameplay loop there. I think it was the first one of these I played, so it must have been pre-Destiny. So yeah, around, I don't know, 2012, 2013, whenever that came out. Then went back to play Borderlands 1, which I missed initially. And then whenever Borderlands 3 came out, I actually bought a gaming rig specifically because all my friends who I played with it on, I think it was whichever PlayStation it was, they all had moved over to the PC master race. Oh. So I was like, if I want to keep this going, I guess I have to buy a gaming PC. So I bought a gaming PC with the very specific purpose of playing Borderlands 3 on like really high-end settings or whatever. So love the games, love the characters. I think the world's a blast. It's like a more kind of heightened, cartoony version of Mad Max. With a lot more silliness than you get in those movies, which I know is funny because Mad Max movies are silly, but not like a Borderlands game. I have heard that the Tales of the Borderlands is actually one of the best stories in the universe, and I have not played that one, unfortunately. But
I just like spending time in that world, right? Like the same thing. Love the aesthetic of it. Very similar. I've not been able to find another looter shooter. Like I couldn't get into Destiny. There's not a ton out there, and to me, it's the role-playing game element. Like I'm not really a huge first-person shooter guy, but like really the combination of like part roguelike, part first-person shooter, part RPG, like with that same type of just crazy sensibility where we're lampooning things, but also like we're fans of those things. I love when like the random, the enemies pop up where you're like, who's the voice of that? Like Penn and Teller show up and are doing voices, right? Like there's a bunch of cool stuff that kind of, I feel like spoke directly to me as like the type of game I want to play, like just enough gore and explosions, just enough the options to keep me interested in, right? I never was the guy that was like, I'm gonna farm this monster for 20 hours, like for a specific weapon.
That one weapon.
Yeah, but like loved when you got something where you're just like, I can finally upgrade this one thing, right? Like, and it was just always filled with surprise and delight. Something this movie was sorely missing.
Yes, I would agree with that. And I think a thing that really stuck out to me that I like about it, that I feel like a lot of other looter shooters of the Destiny ilk have fallen into the trap of, this is a leveling system, but they've made Gearbox has done a great job at making the games super easy to jump in and jump out of with friends, no matter where either of you are in the story. It's like, oh, hey, I'm 5 chapters ahead. You can still join, and it's not going to penalize you. So I also think like the camaraderie of playing with friends is a big deal. I think the last thing I should probably hit on, and I'm saying all this because it's going to tie directly into my review of the movie.
For sure.
The gun customization. I mean, literally hundreds, if not thousands of gun possibilities. And it, like, again, just always discovering like, again, I'm not a huge first person, like I like some first person shooters, but it's not my primary genre. But just seeing like the inventiveness that went into all of these different weapons and how they're able to procedurally generate, it's crazy. It's impressive. And I am a big fan of that. We haven't mentioned the characters yet. There's actually a pretty memorable cast of characters. Usually some pretty great
Crazy
villains.
good
Even
cast.
yeah,
Crazy good. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, those are our thoughts on Borderlands, the video game series. So I think without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our spoiler-filled review of Borderlands.
Brave Vault Hunters! You've come in search of the secret lost vault of Pandora!
You ready to kick some ass?
Okay, let's go.
Hey. Catch!
If the legends were true, I'm the only one who can open the vault.
So according to IMDb, Borderlands is described as based on the best-selling video game. This all-star action-adventure follows a ragtag team of misfits on a mission to save a missing girl who holds the key to unimaginable power. So this film was written and directed by Eli Roth. It stars Cate Blanchett as Lilith, Kevin Hart as Roland, Jack Black as the voice of Claptrap, Ariana Greenblatt as Tiny Tina, and Jamie Lee Curtis as Dr. Patricia Tanis. The cast of characters from the games is incredible, and they certainly went big on the names. Production for this film ran from April 1st of 2021 in Budapest, Hungary during the COVID-19 pandemic and wrapped on June 22nd of that year. In June 2023, Craig Mazin, you might know him as the showrunner of The Last of Us and Chernobyl, removed his name from this project and was replaced by Joe Crombie. The film had an estimated production budget of $120 million, and it opened at number 4 on its opening weekend. Last weekend, grossing just $8.8 million. So pretty massive financial failure, and just, icing on the cake. It received a D+ cinema score from audiences and a Rotten Tomatoes score of 9% from critics. So it didn't make a lot of money. The critics hated it. Apparently, at least the people who did the survey for cinema score hated it. Chad, did you hate it? What did you think of Borderlands?
I did not hate it because I think that would just require more energy than anyone else put into this film. It's a fine movie. It's just there is nothing memorable about it. To me, if we're going to continue in the game, this felt like a parts 3 to 6 of the main storyline, right? Like there was and the movie opens with an exposition dump from Cate Blanchett's character. It kind of ends in a arbitrary place. It just I don't know. I would not probably give it. I would have given it a C-. So the D+ is probably, like, just to jump to the chase, like, it's probably about where I was. It was kind of sad to see, like, something that is so beloved and in the video game world so exciting. Like, this isn't a movie that I'll go back and rewatch to, like, love to hate. It's
boring.
It's unmemorable, yes,
Yeah.
and boring. Yeah.
I just want to say, like, that's my takeaway for this movie is there are a lot of things that are bad about it. Probably just as bad, if not worse, as there's a lot of things that are just good enough that they pass, but there's not really. I mean, I think Jack Black's Claptrap is probably the only thing I would say was pretty solid. But frankly, I mean, and no offense to Jack Black, I love, despite recent controversies aside, I really like him as a performer and what he brings to movies. But they also could have just had the voice actor from the games voice the character, and it would have been probably a little funnier even, So he's the highlight. Everything else is just a wild misfire or head scratcher in terms of the decision making. I mean,
yeah, I don't Kevin Hart is the straight man here, like, and like the character is set up to be that. Cate Blanchett is clearly she's the only one that seems to actually be putting in all the energy into a role that is just doesn't make sense for her to be in.
You mean Oscar-winning actress Cate Blanchett?
There are 2 Oscar winners in this movie. Like, on top of probably all of the other awards other people have done, like, yeah, I mean, to go from like is Tar the last movie that she was in? Has she been in anything else since then?
I'm sure she's been in something. That's the most recent, like, kind of movie that she got a lot of publicity for sure.
Yeah. Now, again, this was shot a while ago. It sat on the shelf. We'll see if we ever get the story about, I know that there were some rewrites done or some, which caused some timing issues. I mean, right. You said that it was directed by Eli Roth. I would say mostly, right? And we still don't know what. Like,
yeah, Tim Miller, the director of Deadpool 1, did come in for the reshoots. But the reshoots that were done like years after production had wrapped, by the way.
Yeah, there were, and still, I think probably a year ago now, yeah, exactly. Like, those were done. I mean, he went off and shot that Thanksgiving movie and released it last Thanksgiving, like 10 months ago, in between. Now that, again, was probably shot for a song and a dance, and was easy to turn around, but still, yeah, there were a lot of makings here, and I agree. From Jack Black, I guess that's what he's just the voiceover guy. Like, him and Chris Pratt are like who we go to. Again, like, there's a lot that they could have done here. I would love to know if there is, an Eli Roth version. Is there some other version of this movie? I don't know if it got neutered. I don't know if this was stitched together by pieces and parts. Do
you think?
I would love to know why he originally got into this film, because no one has done. The only press that I saw about this was Jack Black on Conan O'Brien's podcast. And in like the 55th minute, they're like, hey, so you came in to talk about this movie. I guess we should talk about it. And I think they spent less than 10 minutes talking about the Borderlands movie.
That is truly bizarre. I mean, we got trailers for it. I think there were 2 trailers, for it. But it just, we didn't get a Comic-Con push, for example. Or at least not this Comic-Con, at least as far as I could tell. Like, there wasn't. It just felt like whenever the movie was delayed for so long, that's a red flag. Now, here's the flip side of that is sometimes they're taking that time to fix the movie. But in this case, it felt like, well, they did the reshoot so long ago, and it seems like they still weren't happy with it. So they're just like, we're just going to quietly dump it out at the end of August. I'm sure we'll give it some trailers, but it didn't have the big marketing push. You didn't see the talent. I mean, notable talent. What? You're not marketing the fact that you have 2 Oscar winners in the movie, Like,
no, I mean, they did some stuff I saw on like Instagram. They did like a channel that was all based around Claptrap. I got some email, like they gave away some golden key. If you're still playing Borderlands, like they're giving out some golden keys around it. Like, but there was nothing, I don't know. Yeah. Like you could envision, right. And we've seen it with some other things recently. Like, if they really got excited and they thought they had something here, right, there would have been a Twitch stream with Kevin Hart and Kate Blanchett playing the game against right? I don't know, like there's as both of us are marketers in our day jobs, right? Like there's something here that they could have excited the crowd of one of the top selling franchises of all time, like to get people excited to this movie, and they just didn't. And I think the longer they waited, the more stark contrast we'll see against some of the more recent video game adaptations that we've had that have seemed to had turned the tide of, no, we can make good video game movies.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's most shocking to me is that Gearbox was very involved in this production. So I'm just so curious about how this whole thing was assembled, because Eli Roth was an interesting choice. He's an icon in the horror community. He's known for his like edgier, more violent preference for his horror. And, that was where I was like, okay, I can see maybe how he could end up in a Borderlands movie, because there is a lot of this like juvenile humor, edgy, tiptoeing up to edgelord, but violence and sort of things like that. But that's kind of part of the charm. So it's like, okay. And they're like, it's going to be PG-13. And you're like, okay. So it's a PG-13 version of this property. And not that it could have, not that you need that stuff necessarily to hit a home run, but it just felt so It's a very violent, vulgar game series. You're adapting it with Eli Roth for a PG-13 movie starring Kevin Hart and Cate Blanchett. Just weird choices all around, I would say.
Yeah, it feels a little like if you asked Chat GPT to build this video game movie, but like 2 versions ago of Chat GPT, like not even the latest version, right? Like they would probably create a better version of that. And yeah, it felt, at one point, I mean, with only 7 people in the movie theater total, at one point, my friend and I were like, do you think it's okay to talk to it? Like, is anyone going to care if we comment to each other? What? Because there were times, like it felt like watching a Marvel movie where like there's a lot of gunplay, but there's no blood. No one seems to we're not really, people are dying off screen, kind of. We're not seeing the impact of the use of those guns and some of these other weapons. I mean, I think we should talk about the use of weapons in this. All right, at one point, Tiny Tina, who great character in the games, right, blows a lot of stuff up. Like, she has a giant rocket launcher that, as far as I remember, never actually gets fired.
I don't think it did. No. So that, okay, so there's 2 layers to this. I think this is a very bad movie. Now, I think you're a little more charitable to it than I am. I think it's a very bad movie as a movie. But then I'm thinking, okay, as an adaptation, but I would argue that this thing is a massive failure as an adaptation. As I already mentioned, there's all, the style, the vulgar and all that. But then the characters are miscast. And I think like stuff like the gunplay, like the whole thing is known for how wild and wonky and crazy the guns are. The guns look like freaking Nerf guns half the time. And the editing is so sloppy. It's hard to follow. It makes the action really boring. It really gave me flashbacks to moments of the worst moments of the first Suicide Squad movie where there was needle drops that just made no sense. And I was like, Ace of Spades here? Okay, sure. I
love that movie up until the 3rd act.
Oh, the 3rd act is just a disaster. I mean, I didn't like it before that, but it's a disaster.
There's some good, there's some outstanding parts of that movie, but
hey, Will Smith as Deadshot was fantastic.
Well, yes, he was excellent. That scene with that's a gun scene. Mm-hmm. Like when they first give him the guns, and I mean, it's to Kanye now, which like it doesn't really stand well, but that scene like is great. But yeah, this that was the very first thing leaving this movie. Yeah, actually, we were waiting. My friend and I were sitting there after the movie end, and a guy literally like got up and said, "Oh, I checked just so you know, there's nothing after the credits." And we're like, "No, we're just talking because there's nobody.
There's no one here."
But this was a movie where you could at least see a version where, right, Cate Blanchett should have gone through 30 different guns, right?
Oh,
like
a whole scene.
Krieg could have been upgrading, his axe. Every time we see him, he should be adding pieces and parts to like make it better for the final battle, which like we'll talk about that. But there was no looter shooter. Like there was not a chest. There was no one discovering more weapons. There were no power-ups. So for a game that is literally built on that's to your point earlier, the Gearbox was so heavily involved. Do they not understand? Like, how do they not understand that that's what keeps people coming back to these games and playing them for 10 years now? Mm-hmm. People are still playing Borderlands 1, hoping to get that shield, that gun, that grenade. And it was just, there was none of that. Like, that at least could have been memorable with her working her way up towards getting the best gun in the game, or presumably the best gun for her style or whatever it is. That was the biggest miss, I think, in as a fan of the games coming out of this, that we didn't get any of that type of stuff.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I think in my mind, that's the biggest failure of the movie is, I think it's a bad movie. And I'm not saying I grade video game movies on a curve, but like, I can at least appreciate when they're making a movie for the fans. Okay, an example, the Warcraft movie. I did not like that movie, even though I like Warcraft, the game series, enough. I did not like that movie. I thought it was a lot better than this, but also still not great. But you know what? The fans loved that movie. and I like really had a passion for it, and it really connected with them. And I looked at that, and I think I gave that movie a mad review, but I was like, there is an audience for that movie, and I can appreciate and admire and respect that. This movie for Borderlands, though, I think fans have been trashing it just as much as anyone. It's just not. It's not a successful adaptation. It hardly represents what people like about the games. And again, the gunplay. We've talked about the casting decisions are weird. That's another thing. Like Roland, I mean, none of these characters seem like they were even remotely similar to what I remember from the characters in the games, other than their archetypes, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, probably Jamie Lee Curtis is the closest. Maybe Ariana Greenblatt is Tiny Tina, but even that, again, like, if you're going to say, oh, this is a multiverse type of storytelling, right? Like, because it's kind of the same, but they've made some changes to some backstories. Okay, I get it. Like, in order to put together, because I don't even, like, Tiny Tina, I don't even remember she had a bigger part in 2 and in the later games. Changing her backstory to being, the clone daughter of one of these like titans of industry, a little bit, but yeah, Jamie Lee, like, she's the one that came closest to Tannis, but again, they had to do some rewrites to make that character different based on the changes they had to make to Lilith with Cate Blanchett playing that character.
Oof. Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know. That's another thing. I love Cate Blanchett. I think she did a good job with what she was tasked to do. I think she really showed up, but I just think that the way that whole character was conceived for this movie was just wild. It just was off for me. Do you think, what if
on
you...
the plus side, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, on the plus side, she looked great. Like, they actually all look really good. The costuming, cool. The wigs, like, even some of the scene design, I will say, I know you wanted to talk about some of the effects. There were definitely parts where I was like, how much of this is practical? How much, like, I actually thought some of it looked pretty good. They just made poor choices about what to do with some of the scenery.
Yeah. So let's drill down on the VFX. I thought that the video games look better in a lot of places, which is weird because the video games are also cel shaded. So it's kind of bizarre when you're watching what is definitely a set designed for the volume that does not look as good as something that ran on a PlayStation 4. Like, so I did like. They did integrate practical more than I expected, I will say. There was a couple scenes where you can see they were really actually throwing props around and stuff. Yep. So that was an admirable, and I think you're right. I think there was a moderate success. What I will tell you looked extremely bad was anything with flying. It looked like Sky Captain World of Tomorrow, except for in that movie, it's supposed to look like that. In this movie, it's like, what is going on? I feel like this is a college humor sketch I'm watching right now. Unbelievable. I think the art direction holds up. I just think like the way that was executed and like the way they implemented it was pretty botched largely. What did you think?
I'll give you that. I agree. Some of the, it definitely, there were parts that looked like SNL bits to me. Like they're just standing in front of a green screen, just going like, whoa, whoa, like the flying, the chase scenes. The other thing, like for a franchise that is known for the giant monsters, and again, in a world where we've now seen kaijus and Godzilla, right? Like we've seen a lot of that. To get what we got here with the Threshers, with the tentacle, the vault beast at the end, like
that was such a joke. What an anticlimactic! I can't even. That was the part where I'm like, well, maybe this will at least lead up to a really cool battle with the vault dweller, the vault beast, or whatever. No, nothing.
That's what sealed the deal for me, was like, they finally, the whole thing is being built up, and again, like everything is telegraphed. There is no twist and turn. There is no surprise here, especially for video game people. But I think anyone who would see this movie kind of knows where a lot of these things end up going. But to eventually unlock the vault, get inside the vault, and then be given essentially nothing. I mean, in the first game, it turns out like the vault, like the vault has a beast that's going to destroy the world.
Mm-hmm.
And like, this, we get a tentacle or two, you know, like, and they grab a guy and pull him away. And to just like, do you understand what they were celebrating at the end of this movie?
No, I actually, honest to God, don't. I guess they killed the evil capitalist. Is that
But
the whole planet celebrating? I don't like. It was like a Star Wars Return of the Jedi kind of moment. And you're like, what? Okay, they got to the vault and it was bogus. I guess that guy's dead. Party.
Let's shoot off some fireworks again. Like, yeah, it made no sense. Like everything up until that point, I can at least say, but the last 10 minutes just, they don't tie it together. It jumps. It feels like it jumps to a cutscene that, just doesn't make sense. Like that. That's where I had hopes that they could pull it together. Okay, this other guy was the B plot, but once we, he's gonna fall in a pit, and we're gonna unleash this monster, and like that's gonna be the big boss fight. And no, there was just like, we just had a mini boss fight with like a bunch of other random, like there was just nothing. Again, it feels to me like there was supposed to be something else here, and they
ran out of money. Like because that's what's so head scratching to me. I'm like, what happened? Because clearly, I mean, you guys know the games. You make the games. You get in the vault. It's a boss fight, and it's like they ran out of money. And they're like, actually, what if we just showed the tentacles and called it good? It just is bizarre.
I don't. Did they shoot one and then they couldn't? I don't know. And again, why are people celebrating? There's.
And what was the actual character arc? I guess Lilith has a little bit of self-discovery, but like it definitely didn't feel like
she belongs on Pandora.
Yeah, exactly. Like it. None of the other characters have an arc, so yeah, the celebration at the end just felt like. I wish hollow was an accurate word. It was more just like baffling. I was like, what am I watching right now?
Yeah. It felt like we just missed 10 minutes of something. Going back to the VFX, I actually thought her wings, like her fire wings, looked kind of cool.
I wanted them to be way bigger, if I'm being honest.
I get that, but I don't know. I thought it was good given the way everything else looked. I thought she looked decent. I thought she had some interesting moves there. But again, not enough explosions, not enough. I wanted more. There should have been even more. Whatchamacallits, the why am I blanking on
humor, fun, joy, entertainment.
But the guys in the orange jumpsuits.
Oh, the psychos?
The psychos, yeah. Like if you're gonna give me the psycho, like if you're gonna give me that psycho battle 2/3 of the way in, and then you're gonna bring them back again, like I want it to be again like the video game.
Yeah.
Give me 100 psychos. Give me a bunch of those different mini bosses. Give me guys in different armor. It just
and have like a leader psycho who leads that gang or something to make them all like at least one or two of them stand out. There was, if you looked really closely, and again, they probably minimized this in the editing, but they had like the midget psychos, which is probably not appropriate anymore.
Well, but, they've changed the names. Like in the newer games, they don't call them that anymore. But and then they added that big spaceship, which, as far as I mean, there have been times that there were like giant space lasers, but it was not like something that you actively fought it, right? It was like more of a plot story of like, we have to destroy the space laser in order to get to this thing. Him having control with this glove and I get like they just made up too much stuff to kind of fit in a rushing to the end. So
also they had it. Okay, listen, I mean, this is me doing the fan complaint thing. You've got Handsome Jack. He's a great villain. Now, I guess if you think there's going to be more movies, you save him for the sequel. But like, if you think you're only going to have one shot, maybe play your best card first. Like in this case, but here's the thing. my thought is I don't even want to see I don't even want to see this version of Handsome Jack. I just want to go back and play more of the games. I don't know, Chad, what do you think? Would you watch more of this Borderlands?
So one, immediately, yes. I was like, man, I wish I had the time to just do like a run through and play like all of the mainline story game, and just get through that. Like that would probably be fun. Maybe like this winter when I'm usually am slower and have some downtime, like that'll be on my list. It's one of these things where like I would have loved if this was a TV show, right? Like you could have done a Tales from the Borderland. You could have done a mission of the week where there's so many characters and so many things in this toy box that we could have done something as a really cool television show set in this world. And I don't know why they didn't do that. Especially when we know that this was done a few years ago when seemingly every streamer was giving out money to do those types of things. $120 million 8-episode TV show would have been a much better than $120 million movie that gets shelved and what we ended up getting. So would I love there to be more Borderlands stories? Yes. Do I want to see more on the screen or with these characters? No. And unfortunately, like we probably are not going to get anything. Now that said, Gearbox could go out on their own. They certainly make probably enough money from the video games to do something else. But we're not going to see it. I can't imagine we're going to see anything else.
No way.
I mean, we're more likely to see the third and fourth Kevin Costner film in that movie series than we are to see
Horizon. Oh, wow.
Horizon.
You're right.
Which we're not going to see either. But like, I think we'd more likely to see that than another Borderlands movie with any of these same characters, other than maybe you could build something on a Tiny Tina type of thing, or even just set in the same world theoretically where that happened, but someone else picks it. I don't know. I would still like to see it just because I love this series so much that I want to see more stories set in this. But if you told me those stories are going to come as graphic novels or, as mini-sodes inside of the game, right? Like I'd be just as happy with that.
Try the animated series route. I mean, Arcane, masterful series from Riot Games set in the League of Legends world, and I don't even play League of Legends, and I loved the first season. Like, bought the 4Ks are coming out. I've got one pre-ordered. And honestly,
Castlevania. I mean, that's series. Like, I love the Castle. Like, that Metroidvania is probably the style of games that I played the most of growing up and now. And yeah, like for years we've been hearing about a Castlevania movie, and like that animated TV show was so successful enough that we got a sequel series set a couple hundred years in the future or whatever it was. So yes, I could sooner see that of them partnering with someone. I mean, Netflix just announced they're doing a Ghostbusters animated show. You're right. That's probably the best way to tackle these as a story of the week type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, like the series, the aesthetic inherently lends itself to animation, in my opinion. Well, Chad, I've got some bad news for you, and it didn't occur to me until I was watching this movie. You may recognize the producer, Avi Arad,
I'm very familiar with Avi.
Yes. Who I did not realize was a producer on this movie until I was watching it, and I was like, oh.
Same.
And unfortunately, he's attached as the producer for the Legend of Zelda movie, which is really giving me a lot of anxiety as a lifelong Zelda fan, and it sounds like he was well. Stop giving this guy stuff. I mean, I guess, does it make money? I guess some of it does.
But he also produced the Spider-Verse movies, right? So, like,
yes,
I think he's on there just because. I think some of this, I think, is just because of the companies that he's owned and right. It's just easier to add him as a producer. We have no idea how much he's actually. I'm gonna look it up now. What else he? That Uncharted movie wasn't bad.
It was solid enough. Yes, it was not terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, he did Morbius, of course, How could we forget? All the Venom movies, yeah, all the Spider-Man stuff. Just in a sense, he did Ghost in a Shell.
Yeah, and I think that's just from his days of when he owned Marvel, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
because I just saw, I think there was a big story that he finally, like, he just sold all of his Disney stock.
Oh, Avi Arad
that
was on
he
that
had
list
gotten.
too. Okay.
Yeah. I think he was
Okay.
one of those people that like just got out of it completely. But yeah, I think some of these things date back to some of that type of stuff. So
Okay.
you know, it's
Interesting.
It's,
Well, I'm not going to give up hope for the Zelda movie entirely, but that's also a name that when it pops up, at this point in my life, it's more red flags than it is excitement. But
I mean, he's a consulting producer for X-Men '97, and like we both agreed, like that was fantastic.
Incredible.
So,
That's true.
you know, we shall see. I still have high hopes for that Zelda movie. I think it's
It's got potential.
kind of too big to fail. But
I hope so.
We'll see.
I thought the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes from earlier this year was very, very solid, and as were the Maze Runner movies. So there's hope there. All right, Chad, I think you mentioned a letter grade earlier, but I just want to lock you in here. What letter grade would you give this movie?
I'm still going C-. You know, it's not bad, but it's not good. You know, I can't give this in like the D or Fs that it was horrible. You know, there were things that I liked. It's just not memorable.
I'm gonna, and I usually, I feel like in my reviews, I'm usually generally looking for the positive, trying yes, we're gonna be critical, but also there's things it does well. There's a couple things it does well, but unfortunately, those things it does well don't come together in any sort of meaningful way. So I guess I give it an F+. An F+. I'll give it a plus. You talked me up to a plus for an F. An F+.
You're giving it the full-on F.
It's pretty bad, man. I can't think of a single person I would recommend it to. Even fans that oftentimes you can recommend fans that you can recommend fans that more of the thing they love, and they'll show up and they'll still love it. This is not this one, and I can't recommend it as like a safe PG-13 action movie because I think it's boring. Like I don't know who to recommend it to. So what do I do with that? It's an F. Failure.
Hey, that's fair. Hey, if that's a I agree. I can't really recommend it to anyone, but I think if you're a fan of the games, maybe just watch it when it's free on a streamer in a couple of weeks.
If you're I'll give you that. If you're a fan and you're curious, as in, would you rather not be on your deathbed thinking, man, I never watched that movie. They said it was so bad. I wonder how bad was it really? If don't give yourself that kind of heartburn. Don't carry that stress around your life. Watch it. But otherwise, I think that's about it. Well, here, how about this, Chad? I'll give us some redemption. Maybe there's some other things we could recommend for our listeners to check out, whether it be games, television shows, other movies. What would you recommend?
I mean, if someone hasn't watched Fallout yet, like go watch Fallout on Amazon Prime, right? Like that's probably, again, right, you can squint and see a version where if Borderlands had gotten that treatment, it could have been great.
Yes.
Right? Like if someone behind it, I don't know, right? Like I wish something like that could have happened to it.
Eli Roth is not the equivalent to Jonathan Nolan, for example. That they don't have the same in terms of like creative influence. They're not exactly on an equal playing field, especially in relation to the property.
That I think is a fair statement. What else? I mean, I was trying to think of any other stylized movies. We're talking a little bit before of things that like you love to that are not great, but you still love to watch. Probably for me, and we talked about some other I love those Resident Evil movies, but I think the other thing that we're supposed to be getting another one is the Riddick films.
Oh my gosh.
They're another one. They're super stylized.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They have a very specific look. They are not great, but like the plots are very basic.
Mm-hmm.
But like I love it though.
A lot of
flip
fun
on TNT and they're on.
Yeah,
like
man.
it's a good time. Yeah, and they've had a bunch of great folks have popped into those movies, right? Like, we've had Tandy Newton's dropped in there, right? Like, Carl Urban was in there. I mean, there have been some folks with Vin Diesel that have showed up in those movies. So I would rather I'm just gonna go rewatch those
Reddit
and
movies?
hope that the sequel that has been long talked about will finally get made.
If Vin Diesel has anything his way, he is going to get like 5 more of those movies. I'm confident. So here's what I'm going to recommend. First off, just go play the games. I seriously, if anything we've said today has resonated with you at all, I hope the takeaway is the Borderlands games are incredible. This movie is a disappointing representation of those games because they really are in the upper echelon of like great video games of all time. Go play those. I mean, you could probably find 2 or 3 on any console, but there's like a Handsome Jack collection, I think, compiles a bunch of them together.
Been super discounted too. I mean, you could get like the whole bundle of everything with all the DLCs for probably like 60% off right now, just because it's been a while since they've been released. So yeah, whether it's Steam, whether it's
Epic Game Store,
used in GameSpot, like I'm sure you can find it. If you, I'm sure if this is, I can't imagine that anyone has made it this far into this episode
and not played
hasn't played those video
exactly.
games. But if you haven't, or you've only played, some of them and want to go, go and play them.
Totally worth it.
Much better time.
It's available on basically all modern consoles and PC. I'm also going to give a shout out just because I was also super sad that it did not make more money, and it is hyper stylized, and these games are super influenced by the Mad Max franchise. Go watch Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. In fact, I think it just came out on 4K Blu-ray today. I know mine's in the mail and it's available digitally. Great movie. Not, it's different than Fury Road, but still a great movie, a great time, powerful world building, has all the style. No one showed up to see it at the theater. It broke my heart. Give them throw them a few bucks their way right now. You can make up for it. And lastly, I would say, I actually think Eli Roth, I don't love everything he's done, but Thanksgiving, the movie he went and made instead of doing the reshoots for this, was a really great time. And I think you should absolutely check that one out. So, if you take nothing else away from this movie, it's go play the games and go watch some better movies.
I totally even forgot about that. What else? Now I just want to see what Eli Roth movies are streaming that I could just go watch.
I'm sure the Hostel movies are out there somewhere.
Go watch right now. Or better yet, maybe I'll just go rewatch Inglourious Bastards, where he's just in it.
Hey, he's a great actor too. I love it when he pops up as an actor. Seriously, he's always super funny, and especially in that movie. Man, give him some great role. Well, Chad, is there anything else you'd like to add about Borderlands before we wrap up today's conversation?
No, we've already spent more time than this movie deserves, and I will completely forget it until it shows up on whoever Lionsgate has a relationship with.
Crackle, until it shows up on Crackle with ads.
Excellent. Yes. I can't wait to watch this movie with ads so that it takes you 45 minutes longer.
The dream.
I will completely forget about this movie. So no, I don't have, other than, to start thinking about what the next big over the top film is that I want to come and talk about with you.
Please do. I mean, there's a lot of great potential. We got Mufasa. That's about it. It's actually kind of a weird, the fall's shaping up to be there's some good ones, but some strange picks in there. Well, Chad, if people want to keep up with you and all of your movie opinions or adventures out in the world, where can they find you online?
I am C Parizman anywhere that I want to be found. Feel free to hit me up. Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm having a lot of fun over on Threads now that I believe X is dead. So
is it dead officially? Has it been declared dead by?
I mean, it is in my opinion.
Yes,
there are certainly people still on it. I just don't want to associate with those people. So I'm having a lot of fun over on Threads. It seems like a lot of people have kind of popped over there in the last week or two. So let's go chat some crazy movies over there.
Awesome. Yes. Check out Chad. He's a great follow online. And of course, you want to find things I'm doing over at thecinemetropolis.com. Of course, Cinemetropolis, all the social media platforms. We do technically still tweet, barely. I sometimes forget to do it. We really aren't active on X, but we do occasionally send out the bot tweets. from there. But yeah, we're on Threads. Instagram is where we're spending a lot more of our time lately. And then, of course, me on all the channels, Letterboxd, Instagram, all of them at C Masters Talk. That's letter C Masters Talk. Chad, it's been such a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Absolutely. I'm always excited to welcome you back on. And listeners, thank you so much for joining us for this bonus episode. Make sure to stay tuned for our next main review, which is going to be out next Wednesday, Alien Romulus. I think it's going to be a great time, or at least I certainly hope so. Until next time.